ladies and gentlemen, this is Jock from the ASSMPI and the Other Side Press, and today you are watching and are invited to listen to a very, very, very good friend of mine, a brother, if you like, is Kai Mwigi, who I have had known for many years, is also involved in the ASSMPI, and is probably one of the finest physical mediums of the modern day. And we're going to talk about today some breakthroughs that have happened recently, something you and I have been discussing over quite a long period of time, and we've had our ups and downs, and there's been so many naysayers, but finally there's been some exciting news to share. If you hear me coughing, ladies and gentlemen, through this, it's because this is the first day that I've ever come back and recorded, and I'm getting over a serious chest infection, so if I cough, please forgive me. But anyway, Kai, will you take a draw of your cigarette there? Welcome, brother, welcome, welcome. It's awesome to see you, and I'm so excited of these amazing breakthroughs that you've had. Just recently, from TOSP yesterday, we just released the article on the full materialization, and I'm sure everybody in the world wants to know. And that obviously, there's going to be people that don't believe it and everything else, but let's face it, you've been developing now for a very, very, very long time. So tell us how it all began. And I know we did a video before, but you can just go over for people that don't know you, how it all began, how things have developed, and how we've culminated on this amazing breakthrough.
Thank you very much, dear Jock. I'm very excited, and my gratefulness goes rightly back to you. Yeah, the materialization we had actually was so special because it was revealing features of it. The former forms of materializations we had were not revealing to that degree. So we, for the first time, saw an entity with so deep aspects of characterization or of characteristics, facial characteristics, and so forth. And they were so impressing. And this is what distinguishes or discerns this materialization of the day before yesterday from the many full materializations we had in the months, actually in the 2 years that lay behind us. So, and that all began when I was 15. I brought for the first time people together on a boarding school I was at. And that was happening after an initiation-like experience I had when I was 11, nearly 12 years of age. I was confronted that with the fact that the spirit world can enter our world physically. And I am strongly believing that that was not happening by coincidence. I believe I should be there because that was, as I said, the initiation point. I started to excessively work myself into it. And that means I read and experimented, and I founded circles, many over the years, and they all had physical phenomena to different degrees of outcome, but they all were positive, and the most positive and the most strongest of all of them was the Felix Circle. That was functioning nearly 11 years, and we are still meeting sporadically at Eastern, at New Year's Day, around that, and so forth. And what we are bringing out to the people at the moment was actually developed in the Felix Circle, but as I said, I was active all the many decades, actually 35 years I am at the moment involved. Very specifically.
So it's interesting to note because there's so many young mediums and there's so many up and coming groups, and there's a little bit of this. They go and they visit and they see a seance, and then instantly they want to do their own circle, and perhaps they don't understand that. I mean, you've been developing for 35 years. Developing is possibly the most important aspect of anything, And so they must have an expectation that this is in for the long haul.
Yes, but I believe when you are lucky and you have a certain talent and the right people with you,
You can get it
and
quicker.
the time and place is right. I mean, we have inspired, and I have written that in the article as well. We have inspired with our work a lot of circles all around the world, and many of them had immediate results.
In terms of their immediate results, these are, I mean, they're not full materializations like you are. I mean, but they
Oh
are
no,
getting
not
phenomena.
yeah,
So whilst it's important to let them know that, yeah, you may get phenomena and you may get results from your sitting, don't think that overnight you're going to start having full materializations like yourself, like Helen Duncan, Alec Harris, pioneers of the past that have gone forth. It's very important to recognize that there has to be a level of dedication and there has to
yes.
be an understanding that this will take a while.
Yes. If you connect the materialization with the deep trance work I started in the Felix Circle, it took actually 8 years, 8 years to develop from, let's say, basic physical phenomena of the seance room and even group related physical phenomena of the seance room. It took around 7, 8 years now to develop the crown, the kingship of
Yeah.
physical mediumship, full materialization. And I say that so frank and freely because I actually was the last who was believing in the beginning that that would be possible,
Yeah, I
but it
remember
did.
speaking to you
It worked.
before. I remember speaking, you and I have spoken many, many times, and we've had great discussions where you never actually really were focused on materialization. You actually, and you didn't think it was going to be possible. I remember you saying that, but then how things have changed. It just goes to show you that it's maybe not, you don't control everything within the seance room. It's also down to your team. And so this breakthrough that you had, Kai, we're talking, we've seen the images, we've read the report. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure people will all want to know, who was it? Are we talking the Henry Morgan of the past, the Buccaneer that was, connected to the Katie King materializations? Is this who we're actually seeing, Kai? Is this who has materialized?
Yeah. Um, Following the words of the main communicator, it is him. And actually, it's not the first time that his name is mentioned.
Yeah,
He was at least mentioned in a seance of us a few months ago. But at that day, people weren't. It was not bright enough. There was an alleged materialization in the room, but the people could not really see it. It was claimed John King is present, and that's quite interesting because John King is popping up over the decades again and again.
absolutely.
Last time with the Sorat group, actually, he was working or is working. Actually, the Zorat group is still active, interestingly, and they are still getting their written messages. And John King was one of those who was bringing forward written messages for the sitters. So I believe after his Sorat appearances, um, he did not appear until he appeared now in our circles or in our seance.
It's absolutely amazing to what you've actually achieved, and it must be recognised that as a group, it's not just yourself. I mean, you've now had your good lady Julia's been by your side, and there's a lot of people now. Let's go to this, Kai, because there's a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of naysayers. You're still going to have. I mean, you and I have been involved with skeptics. We've had our issues in the past and things like this, but you have, we must take our hat off to you, because even though you have been attacked on so many occasions, you've continued the work, you've continued to do it, and there is no doubt that the development, you're being rewarded for your, my God, you must have a shield of round you, like a shield of gold, because you've just got so many things that have been happening. But it's important to recognize that there are going to be people that will look at these images and say, well, where was Kai when he was there? Why am we not seeing a picture of this spirit standing next to Kai? Why is he cloaked like this? Why can't I see them? There's a great deal of ignorance. But what do you say to these people who are going to come out with these, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge of materialism or ancient physical mediumship? What do you say to them when they say, well, that's just a cloak, and that beard was Kai wearing a beard? Obviously, I know, and thousands know that's not the case, but you're going to have that now, because this is historical significance. You have made history in terms of the annals of mediumship from the pioneers of the past. You've made history again. History has repeated itself. So we're going to get the same problems from these naysayers. What do you say to them? How do you come back and explain it?
First of all, I need to say that, of course, over the years there were only a few attacks over the years, and um, parallelly, we always had the strongest support, specifically from those who were hosting us, who were visiting our seance in a high regularity, because for them it was no doubt that the mediumship is basically very strong and genuine, and um, to take single events of the past and uh, uh, try to validate their significance. That's very difficult in itself, and it makes no sense at all. I mean, come to our seances and uh, uh, stay there and
Witness it.
witness it, and then you feel the vibe of the genuineness. And what the materialization concerns, actually, we were already wanting to have at that specific location a much bigger cabinet. And
Right.
the spirit entity is permanently asking for it, because there is a very very small space in the cabinet. I mean, it is bigger than a meter. It is actually a hula hoop ring that has a diameter wider than 1 meter, and it's quite spacey in it. But for two people, it starts to become a little bit narrow. I mean, what came with this last materialization, and we had that before. I mean, um, we had seances in which you could see myself and the full materialization at the same time. I need to say that, but not every time. Important for me is, I mean, I am I am, unfortunately, I am a very big guy. I will have a personal trainer soon, and everything will
Come
change.
on.
But at the moment, I'm a relatively big guy. And I mean, we had materializations so slim, so tiny. Um,
Yeah, I can clearly see from the imagery that it's not you, because there's
Absolutely, it is
pictures of me and
ridiculous.
you together, standing together, and we're two big guys, so it's that's
Indeed.
certainly not going to.
And then you need to consider Julia is looking always into the eyes of the
Yeah,
materialization. I mean, she would have long since
she knows.
recognized that that is her husband, if it would be me.
No,
But I mean,
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people, Kai, that they aspire to be like you. Their groups are aspiring to be like you, and that's a fantastic thing, because we have a lot of people that want to move forward and develop their mediumship. But there's certain important facets of physical mediumship that we understand. And you talked about the cabinet, and you talked about how important the cabinet was, and how spirit are asking for a particular size because of what they're doing. Just explain to people who maybe don't understand the reality of the cabinet, the power source that it is, and why it needs to be particular.
Actually, we in the German tradition are using the cabinet much lesser than, for example, the English. During our regular sessions, we are sitting with the people in the circle, and the cabinet is in our back.
Right.
Yes, only when huge volumes of ectoplasm are produced around the medium, then this happens, at least to a certain degree. I mean, you know that we have revealed a lot in the red light, and the most basic and the most complex ectoplasmic ongoings or happenings or activities we have brought into the light, so nobody can say, what are you doing behind the cabinet?
And that's important, I think, to recognize, is because there is still this great divide between developing in the darkness and bringing into the light. And I think that's an important aspect to try and get over, because you have developed in the dark, but you've brought it to the light. And I think all great mediums have done that to a certain extent. They've never just come straight into the light. So it's very, very good to recognize that there's a need for both. There's like a balance. There's that yin and yang balance, and not one person, I think, just develops in light. I think if they're really serious about it, you have to have both aspects of it. But you must understand, as well as I do, that there are so many possible frauds that happen when it's in the dark. There's very few people like yourself that have managed to go further and actually bring all that phenomena to the level that you're getting it into red light, and even greater red light. You know, it's, I mean, you know, you've developed with white light and red light, and you've tested all sorts of things. So, do you think that a group can just sit in the light and start to get phenomena straight away, or do you think if they're more serious about it, they have to have a balance of both, and why?
I believe that that the darkness plays, for different reasons, a very, very important role when we look at the, let's use this word purposefully, when we look at the occult presence in our reality. This ancient knowledge about a certain connection between occult ongoings, and the word occult, by the way, is the oldest word from Greek and Latin, what we have, that is describing this whole complex. In the word itself, this ancient knowledge about this connection between both is transported, because directly translated, occult says that what comes from darkness. So we have a word here that develops over more than 2,000 years, yes, and for sure not to condone a fraud in the dark, but to tell us an old story about the connection, respectively about the conditions under which strange things happen to us human beings. I mean, this is mirrored in other ongoings as well. Let's take very little children who suddenly develop the fear of darkness. There is no reason why they develop that, no earthly reason. And the parents are usually very irritated when that is happening to them. Their last memory towards a darkened environment should be their memory of the motherly womb. But there is something older, an older knowledge in them, in their DNA, and that is developing the fear in them because they know subliminally, subconsciously, so to speak. They sense, or they innerly know, they sense that in the dark things can happen. So, and why is that so? Is that a biological need? Like, for example, plants that need darkness for photosynthesis,
Yeah.
or is that a need we find? Maybe it's not darkness. Maybe it is what darkness does. It takes our access, our perception is blocked in darkness, and we know from quantum physics that um, our perception is hugely interfering with what we are concerned with. So it is the observer effect.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to the observer effect, where you're looking at something and it changes because
Actually, and we have further evidence that that is actually the case from paranormal field research. We know that German researchers actually there is a knowledge amongst parapsychological field researchers. It is the difficulty to bring things on camera, even though it is unquestioned that the phenomena are present. Every time the researchers come and build up their cameras and everything, either the phenomenon is not coming up when the cameras are ready, or the phenomenon is coming up, but the cameras fail. You find that in paranormal field research over the last 140 years, 130 years, regularly. It seems, for the investigator, it seems as if the phenomenon would purposefully try to avoid our grab of perception, respectively, the devices that are made for our perception. So either it does not occur, or the whole systemic or the whole system is bringing itself to the point that the camera itself doesn't work. So German researchers then started either to unfocus the lens or try to get an image by filming through a mirror. And surprise, surprise, from the moment on, they didn't want to confront the phenomena not anymore directly with their perception, but via
a third
side
party,
way.
if you like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Suddenly they were enabled, a little bit defocused, of course, but they suddenly were enabled to film the phenomena. So, and I believe something. That what was the defocused lens for the paranormal field researcher to have the phenomenon happen is for us experimenters in the seance room, the darkness. Yes, we need to, the occult phenomenon, it is called elusive, this behavior. It's always happening at the side of our view. It's hard to get a full view onto it. This is called elusiveness, and I believe we need to provide a certain environment for the phenomenon that it occurs in the first place. And this environment is darkness.
I think that's important to know because it has to occur in order to be able to develop it and bring it further into the light, as in what you've done. So you have to allow it. It's almost like planting a seed in the ground. You have to plant the seed in the ground. It's in the darkness, and then you have to give it the right energy, the right nutrients, everything to actually bring it out. So I think that's an important thing to say, that it's something that you have to almost tease out of in order to build in. Yeah.
And there is another important thing I need to say. Over 30 years, I am now actually trying to observe internationally with people I can get in contact, and very purposefully, I'm doing that for around 20 years. I am getting in contact with people who frequently come up and say, our group will develop everything into light. Unfortunately, some of them even were told by their spirit controls that it would be possible to develop it into light. We do not exactly know why that is the case, but we know how very much often spirit communication can be intermixed with our own
Absolutely.
hopes
Your
and
own
dreams and
ego and your
oh,
own knowledge and can actually interfere with it. Yeah.
because important to know is that none of these groups succeeded. Really, none of these groups.
And I've
And
seen,
there
and I
were
have to go
quite a
back to
few.
this. I've seen examples of phenomena or people claiming that they're having phenomena in their life, but in all honesty, the examples that I've seen are highly questionable.
Yeah, I mean, you can develop some things into the light, but their time is small or
Yeah.
short. I'm short, and the development specifically is specifically different to achieve. Oh, you broke up, Jock?
No, I'm here.
Oh, but your image is frozen. Okay.
Oh, the image is frozen. I think yeah, it's a bit jumpy. Let me see now.
Okay. By the way, I am looking so tired because I am um, awake since more or less since it is Sunday, and I'm more or less awake since Thursday. This is happening in connection with, yes, the excitement and what these
Yeah.
physical seances are doing with me. Regularly, I suffer sleeplessness after these seances, but after these exciting events and, yes, the worldwide reaction we have at the moment, um, that's why I have slept so only a few hours, and that's why I am looking so tired. I
Well,
believe
listen.
that needs an
Let's
explanation
let's have a 5 minute
when I
break,
see
and then we'll
myself
come
here,
back
you
and do
know.
the second half. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had a little breather and also to reset because we had a little bit of issue with our connection. But we're back again, and we've been discussing, Kai, all about the need for phenomena and within the seance room and the darkness, bringing it to the light. We understand that it can be brought to the light. We understand how important that is in the development. But one of the things that you touched on just before that we lost it was your tiredness and how it affects you. And I think everybody would want to know because a lot of people will say, well, you go out and do seances and people charge money and it's like a show, etc., etc. And but they don't actually recognize how telling it is on the medium to do this, and you are exceptionally tired. So, I mean, it is not shadowed of sunken eyes. We can actually see that you're really tired. So, how does this work affect your health?
Mhm. First of all, I would like to say, because we are so very much, and that is reasonable. We focus so very much on the phenomena, but I need to say that the spirits are formulating a clear message to us, and this message has a lot of aspects. Um, but about that we can maybe talk somewhere else.
Mm,
Yes, the work is actually very much draining. Is that the right word?
yeah.
So it takes energy, unquestionably, but a lot of other jobs take energy as well. And the word job is, of course, not the right one, but we decided at a certain point when we were confronted with that huge range of phenomena that the spirits were telling us this is not for you and your seller. So you have the opportunity to share it or to
Yeah,
leave it.
absolutely.
And we decided to share it because much often in one's life you are given such an offer from the spirit world. I mean, and it was an offer from the spirit world, and we said, let's try it. I mean, life is an adventure, and
Absolutely.
um,
But why?
I
But why? Okay, so we've had this through the past. We've had so many mediums and physical mediumship. We've always been fighting a battle with skepticism and various other things. But what is the purpose of spirit doing this through you? A lot of people, and here's I think a question that I've never heard anybody ask you. Right? Why did you decide to do this? Why? What is the purpose of it from your point of view? And what is the purpose of it from the spirit world's point of view? Where are we going with this?
yes, I mean, for me, it was somehow a thing of my nature.
Hmm.
I was drawn to it very, very strongly, and it
Like a
worked
moth
right
to a flame.
from the beginning. It was, and I need to tell you, every seance is still for me uh, something I can let go. And after the seance, I feel very much relaxed, and all tensions and so forth in my body have gone. So from there is on the one hand side this natural connection I have. I don't know why that was written in my plan of destiny, but somebody has written it into that plan. Nobody of us knows exactly why this or that occurs to us. That occurred to me, and um, I found a huge personal fascination and a deep, yes, psychophysical connection and interaction and interference with it and entanglement with it. So this is from my hands, from my side, so to speak, and from the spirit world side. It is actually the case that all around the world, the spirits are working with people actually to raise awareness, to inform us about conditions we are not so commonly aware of. And I believe it is actually therefore to achieve a state in which actually the human race can survive on this planet. This is actually efforts to achieve the paradigm change uh, early or earlier because it's 5 minutes past 12. And so I am, with my work, one of a lot of workers, light workers all around the world. And, oh wait, I need to shut it up here. And so I am doing it my way, according to my abilities, or how shall I call it? Why ever I was involved in this, and I am involved since I'm 12, 15. This has imprinted my whole life. Um, this gave my whole life a certain direction and a certain character. Yes, and so I am proud that I can work on that light workers side, and lucky I am also that our communicator is quite a bright one. And what he says, people are very, very fascinated. It is the way how he says it, and
Are we
it
talking?
is,
Are we talking about Hans now? You.
yes, yes, actually. I mean, I believe Hans is
I've listened to
actually,
Hans, and he is very wise, actually.
yeah, and
It's certainly not coming from your mouth, that's for sure. It's not coming
yeah,
from you.
yes, absolutely, that's for sure. I mean, he says things I wouldn't say also. But basically, what he tells us about um, the motivation of the spirit world. And
Do you think
um,
then, Kai? Do you think that those in the spirit realm see our planet or this Earth plane as being lost, or in turmoil, and are they trying to reach out to save us from our own darkness? Do you think
yeah,
that's the big picture?
not only us, because the truth is that we are not only connected with our visible environment. There is an environment much vastly huger and wider than what we actually sense. And actually, those who communicate there with us, they are concerned as well. So when we fail, they fail as well, so to speak. And so there's a certain undertone of urgency when they are communicating with us, and they are actually um, beseeching us because they say you are usually a highly developed form of universal entity with your ability to discern good from evil, positive from negative, creational from exploitive, and that the highest form of the human being is the human being that in all what he is, that means what he thinks, what he says, what he does, is a human being on the positive, on the creational side of things. I mean, we can always decide to do things uh, in a different way. Either we are doing it in a supportive way, in a creational, in a strengthening way, or we do it in an exploitive way, in which we have quick successes and quick satisfaction. And it is on our shoulders. And I mean, the spirits even explain us why that is the case. And they open another history of the human development and involvement with actually alien races which standing in connection with us and which have influenced our thinking and our behaviorism.
And do you think
And
we're having more? I mean, obviously, we can see in the world now we're having more and more interference from alien communicators or alien visitors. Do you think there's a darker reason behind that, or do you think it's more to do with the development of Earth? I mean, it seems to be more prevalent now, and even in the seance rooms, we're having more connection with alien energies. You know, why is
I
that,
believe
Kai?
that is why, that is because a modern medium can achieve and understand much more complex information from the spirit world than a medium from the 19th century. In the 19th century, that they actually only were finding out a relatively simple complex of here and now and the beyond as a kind of two spaces which are influencing themselves. That was an outcome of the mechanistical worldview of the 1900s. The human being has developed a lot over the last 150 years. We are today in the informational society, or we have the informational worldview, so to speak. This is a highly interconnected and a highly sophisticated and educated state of mind. And of course, that opens new spaces for the mediums to get in contact with. And actually, I believe there is a lot of information we can achieve from there, but the pity is that the classic schools, the classic institutions that are usually coming from England, they are somehow wanting to behold everything in that, I called it simple here and now, and so here we are here here are we, and there are the deceased, so to speak. Here's our world. There is the world of the deceased, and when we die, we go over, and the world is nearly like our world, only a little bit more beautiful. And
So they don't
there, there
expand.
lies,
They don't
there lies,
expand their minds.
yes, there is truth in this, but there is much more. And we can think about it after we have communicated for 150 years with the deceased. If we still want to carry on to, I mean, in grief work, of course, this makes a lot of sense and this is important. But if you want to use your mediumship in an explorative way as well, there lies a lot of things beyond the realm of the deceased. Yes?
And I think it's important to note at this juncture as well, though. I mean, we don't want people setting up circles and trying to develop their mediumship and going out in an explorative way, but they've got to realise that there's a danger to it as well. I mean, there's dangerous spirits there, there's dangerous
Oh
energies
yes,
out there, and they've got to be, don't go from this interview or from us discussing it thinking that everything in the world is rosy and everything in the spirit world is rosy, because that's not the case. Because
that
you
is
mentioned
absolutely.
earlier on about discerning between the good and the evil. So it's very important that people understand that they can't just accept anything.
That is very, very, very important. And unfortunately, um, since I am 20, after I have experienced uh, so much despair
Mm.
in people who were confronted with that negative side,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started to consult and to work with people who either had more outer or more inner disturbances of
Mm-hmm.
that sort. And I can tell you, as you know, that
Well, you and I
there,
study this field a lot. I mean, it's one of my specialities. So yeah, we've had many good discussions on this.
yes, and so there is danger. It is a little bit. I always say it is a little bit like car driving or making your license. You wouldn't simply go into the car without a license, yes.
No.
So it is so very much important that you are sufficiently informed when you start to experiment with the spirit world. And by the way, that's the reason why the Ouija board has such a bad name, because it was sold as a toy.
Yeah,
And and
yeah,
youngsters were told that it
absolutely.
is a game to communicate with the spirit world. Imagine that. And so if you use it as a proper communicational device, then there is not a difference than if you listen to a medium who is giving messages from the unseen realms. But you should not approach it as a game, of course.
It's very serious, and that's under. I mean, at the end of the day, if we take the Ouija board aside, I mean, I can take this cup of tea and turn it into a Ouija board. Is my focus and my intent can start to create that energy,
That's true.
and that's
But
it.
you
So
do
anything
it
that's
with the
really anything
background
that's
and with knowledge. You
exactly.
do
So
it with background and
there's
knowledge.
we need
So your
discernment and we
cup
need
of
knowledge and wisdom.
tea can do you no harm.
Well, that's why we're on ginger tea. So because I'm getting better now, thank God. So, moving forward, we've got this interaction between an alien world and a spirit world and our world. There seems to be a lot of mixed messages, though. There seems to be a lot of mixed communication. How would you explain that? Especially when we have, I mean, let's face it, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this, it used to. I heard, a gentleman who I'm quite friendly with, Philip now. He mentioned to me. He says, one day, Jock, it used to be there'd be one medium in a town, there'd be one medium in a city, and now there's about 50 mediums on your own street. Everybody's doing it. So there's a lot of mixed messages, mixed information. There's this add water and mixed. It's this need to have everything now. It's like email, you want your email instantly. You send a message and you want a return. We know where is the danger in that, because we've got a lot of groups that are popping up. The messages are interfering. There's a lot of different messages. One thinks they're talking with an alien. One thinks they're talking with a famous person or a guide. Where's the danger in this? Where do we go in terms of moving forward in what we're doing, trying to educate people in the right way of developing this work that you do?
Yeah, the danger is that there is a huge sellout, that these earnest and important things, and partially even urgent things concerning humanity and so forth, um, that they become an instant consumption. Yes, and um, yeah, I mean, we are endangered that our whole life is sold out, so to speak. And um, it is in our all responsibilities to work against that. It is in the responsibility of the mediums, as it is in the responsibility of the consumers of that industry, let me say, when we talk in these economical
Yeah,
terms.
absolutely.
So, but actually, spirit is the antibody of this thing that can be sold out, and it is the antibody of the material that um, could at all be sold out. So actually, there is something endangered to be sold out that from its nature has nothing at all lost there. And as I said, it is in the responsibility of the mediums to practice mediumship in a dignified
Responsible
way,
manner.
in a responsible manner.
Now, you're with the FEG, with your circle, you don't just go out and demonstrate everywhere. I mean, you continually develop, which is why we're seeing the wonderful phenomena that you're getting. But the range of phenomena, you've had loved ones come through, you've had materializations. I'd like to talk a little bit about, because you said to me once that one of the greatest things that you wanted to do was to heal, to do healing within the circle, and we've seen elements of that that's happened in your group. Does your spirit team, do they have any particular, where do you go from here? Do they have any particular ideas and how they want to progress you now? Are you moving into more of a more phenomena, more materialization, or will you get more healing coming through? What is your team, what are you working on?
The Felix Circle was doing healing from the start on, from the beginning on. Actually, the word Felix Circle is coming from my grandfather's
Yeah.
first name, Felix. He was an ophthalmologist, and I actually wanted the Felix Circle to be a healing circle at the beginning. But because my grandfather was not available at that time, other communicators came forward, and the whole energy went into a classical demonstrational circle work, so to speak. But we are doing healing work today. We have specific healing routines, and we try to balance it out rightly, because in the seance we also have a strong healing subtone. So this is, I believe, there is a healing is basically a subform of physical mediumship. So what we want to achieve in healing, to actually bring a physiological change in the patient, is more or less or can more or less not distinguish from making an object move 2 meters away. So we are trying to focus the energy we are using in the demonstrational sittings purposefully in healing routines to bring something forward for patients that come to us, that have seen the physical phenomena. They have heard we are giving these healing routines and they are coming to us. And we have achieved quite impressive results in that work. Um, there was a time when we had to actually pause that work because the response was not anymore manageable, and we did not know who shall we give it. Shall we give it to him? Shall we give it to her? And we couldn't give it to all of them, so we stopped it actually.
Okay, we're back with a little bit of technical issues there, but we were talking about your healing work in the circle and how important it's been in the fact that you had pulled away from that. Do you think you pulled away from that side of things because spirit saw you develop? I mean, you said you didn't know who to give the healing to. There's a great deal of personal responsibility in someone's life, and they may not deserve to be healed. However, in saying that, do you
Oh no,
also
not
think that there was an aspect of your team that decided we are moving more into the materialization phase to bring?
no. That went parallelly. I mean,
Oh, in parallel. All right, okay.
that was only a short pause, and we then restarted. Um, and we controlled the information much better, that we weren't confronted anymore with uh, an unmanageable want because of the numbers of people who requested it. And so we managed that. But this is a very exhaustive work. This is a little bit even more exhaustive than the seances in which I actually sleep. Yes. Oh, I don't hear you.
Do you have a
I don't.
special diet? Do you have a special lifestyle? What do you do that makes you prepare for this work?
So first of all, I wasn't hearing the first part of what you were saying. The healing routines are actually working in the meantime with my grandfather. He appeared in a Lakota ceremony 3 years
Oh,
ago, and he um, explained himself to be ready to work with us after so many years. Yes, after we once were chased away by him. But at that time, he was claiming he was working in the third world and that he had no time to work with us when we were originally at the
wow.
beginning of the Vedic circle requesting his help. So unexpectedly, he came forward in a very exhausting Lakota ceremony in which I was taking part. And yeah, he came forward and he said, "So I am ready. Develop routines for me and my colleagues. We will we will set in your trance and will work with you." And since then, he sent his colleagues down um, with a plan for the patient, and they work on many different planes on them. It's very varied what they are doing, and yeah, we had quite impressive results. Of course, you always have patients you cannot help,
Yeah.
but there was a satisfying percentage of people we could help, and it is permanently requested from us to do healing work. So usually when we are uh, going to hosts, healing work is also exercise. We are giving seances and
Awesome.
healing.
Well, I'll go back to the question I had before because a question I know that people will want to know is there's a lot of people that obviously in their circles they want to do this healing work, they want to bring loved ones through, they want to develop the physical phenomena. What is it that you do that makes you more adept to this work? Do you have a specific diet that you follow? Do you have a specific spiritual routine? What do you do in your lifestyle that makes you more adept to this type of work?
I am totally focused onto the spirit world. My regular life is more or less switched off. Um, I am more or less the whole day interswitched or switched on and in connection with the spirit world. Um, we are giving so many seances for the benefit of the people that um, actually the seances and the healing work is the lifestyle in itself. So there is no life left actually.
You're
I could
100% dedicated to this work and only this work.
absolutely, absolutely, and I mean I have changed my diet and um, started to become more and more vegan. But what is long since known, and I experienced that myself, and you can ask other physical mediums. It is known that sometimes it is as if the ectoplasmic processes are somehow depleting um, certain forms of nutrition that need to be restored with um, I don't know the English words, tierische Eiweiße. That means,
I don't know the German words.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, what actually meat gives you, yes. So
So
sometimes I
you
really,
abstain from it, and that actually helps your mediumship for you.
yeah, I mean, sometimes I specifically recognize hunger or the lust for meat specifically after the seances. So there is a connection, and I withstand that as good as I can. And basically, I have changed my whole diet. Basically, I am trying to exist from fruits actually,
Wow. And do you think
and
that's making a difference in your work?
not really,
So
not really.
you could quite easily have a burger and do the same thing.
To be honest, yes.
Yeah, because
This
there'll
is
be a lot, there'll be a lot, there'll be a lot of would-be mediums out there that will be absolutely panicking now, thinking they have to give up the steak in their burgers. And
yeah, I don't know, but I mean, how corrupt the meat industry is. That is
absolutely.
un that is unquestioned, and there is, I believe, more a moral implication here for us all to withdraw from eating meat. Um, yes, because it is so corrupted, and we again and again have specifically what the meat industry concerns have alarming messages from the spirit world
Really,
directly.
that's what I was going to ask. I mean, how did the spirit world actually? How do they interact? I mean, what do they say about meat and?
Yes, the in regards to the meat industry, the spirits claim that the meat industry and the meat itself, and that concerns all these thousands of cattle, for example, which are grazing on American plains and so forth, that the meat is much more corrupted than we already know in
Energetically.
connection, not only energetically, it is about what happened when we had, in German it is called Rinderwahnsinn, when the cattle became crazy. I don't know what the English word is
Like
for.
mad cow disease and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cow disease, exactly. And when cow disease was happening, it was the result of feeding cows actually rests of themselves. Yes, you know that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
the
yeah,
reason
yeah.
for cow disease. And the spirits claim that, I mean, a certain form of Mm, I believe I don't have the right vocabulary for that in English, but um, wait, I need to see what the word is, and then I can explain it. It is the white of the egg, Eiweiß.
All right, right. Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
What's the English word for?
You have the white the you have a yolk and then you have the white of the egg, which is like the protein.
Protein. Okay, so with that feeding of the own genetic material, certain proteins became corrupted, and they are called prions. And these prions were responsible for cow disease, and it took a while until they discovered them and discovered their connection with Creutzfeldt-Jakobsen,
Oh yeah, yeah.
a human disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirits say that there is a lot of undiscovered um, undiscovered uh, corruption of meat that has in reality to do with degenerative human
DNA.
illnesses,
Yeah.
and that actually there is an elite which is already knowing that, and that they try to withhold that information for quite a time, because when that information comes out, actually hundreds of thousands of cattle, if not millions, uh, would need to be killed actually.
But does the
Um,
spirit
so,
world is the spirit world then saying that you must abstain from meat, or are they
oh
saying
no,
that
I mean,
you must choose the right one, or you?
yeah, basically they are saying that. I mean, the spirit world, that they were suffering certain misunderstandings. For example, many communicators were believing we are moral entities, so we would act moral.
Okay.
So when they tell us about the corruption of the meat industry, they naturally believe that that means to us we stay away from meat. But even though we are told that, there are a lot for sure who heard that, or who even know of the existent and knowingly existent um, dangers of eating meat, and the hormones, and
Yeah.
the sedatives which are all in the meat. Um, so we know that, and we eat it. Yes,
So it's
So
very clear to me that your circle development, the materialization of John King, the healing in every aspect of your work, it's not just about the phenomena, because there seems to be great moral lessons, great spiritual lessons that are given. Um, do the spirit world get upset with how we treat each other in the world, how we actually treat our brothers and sisters?
Oh yes, they are
What do they say
regularly.
about that? What do they say about our personal responsibility for our thoughts and actions?
That's the key word. They are regularly in every seance, basically. They are concerning these issues, and as I mentioned before, our environment is much more vast than we have an idea of, and they say that the human activities create on parallelly existent with our world connected realms. Huge negative fields are building up. The wars we fought The atomic bomb, for example, they claim that the atomic bomb was doing huge damage in planes which are connected with us, but which we cannot see because we have no access to them with our perceptual abilities. So the problem is that um, these negative activities not only create that direct harm into our environment, but there are other forms of negativity which are building up over longer periods and um, finally re-influence our realm, and then um, catastrophes happen. Whole
We're talking about Mother
faults.
Nature catastrophes like earthquakes and all this kind of thing, which is our
Exactly,
responsibility.
exactly. But I also talk about wars and why they break out, and why people who have the responsibility to do it better, why they do not do it better. What does influence them? And the outcome of it, the result of it, that hundreds of thousands have to leave their homes. Specifically, what is happening in the Near East or in the Middle East at the moment, the spirit world is regularly referring to that, and they are giving it us a direct historical responsibility because of what the Belgians and the English and the Germans did 100 years ago in the Middle East, how they actually, to exploit the country, did um, negatively influence the indigenous groups, not indigenous, how do we call it? The folks that have ever lived there, the Sunnis, for example,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, and how they played them out against each other. Um, so that hundreds of thousands have lost their homes and at the moment come over to us, to Europe, and of course also to the States. The spirits clearly say to us, you have to get over all your religious and ethnic differences.
Yeah,
And
the
you,
walls that we've built, we've,
yes,
you know, it's one, you know, it's a true saying, Kai. I mean, many years ago, I was kind of inspired to write an article, and I wrote an article based on this, and it was called "All Blood Runs Red." And basically, the premise was that our blood is the same color; it doesn't matter. And even from the spirit world's point of view, we're all the same. We've created all these barriers, and we even create barriers within our own mediumship, within our brother and sister, and I can imagine that, and people don't probably recognize that the spirit world have probably got a harder job now than they've ever done because of what man has done or what man is continuing to do to the world.
absolutely. And yes, and their basic message is a truly moral and humane one. And there is nearly not a seance they are not reminding us of our responsibilities. And that has to do with the reaching of the paradigm shift. They say, when you are not acting moral now, the human race will be wiped from that planet. And when we are unlucky, the planet will die as well. Um,
Do you
so
think in that case are we on a path to destruction? Do they see that we're destroying the world, or do you think there would
definitely,
be a
they say,
spiritual intervention? Will there be
they
a
say,
spiritual intervention?
they say, um, we have seen the future of the world in vectors of probability. And we have seen scenarios which are so deeply shocking, and things that happen to you in the Western world, you you do not even want to know about it. Yes, so shocking they are. And It is the moment now. It lies in your hand. We look at you as the spiritual elite because you are listening to us. But you have to do something now. You have to connect. You have to build your personality towards a personality of goodness, or the personality that is purely built on positive aspects. And when you have reached that, then you have reached the highest level of human being. And in the realities you do not see, you will be regarded as the most graceful and the most light and powerful God you can imagine. Because for those realms, you are God. A small act of forgiveness is actually releasing a whole planet from a plague. And you have no idea that you are connected in that way with an environment that is vastly
And
broader and wider.
that's a great lesson, because just the smallest act of kindness, the smallest act of forgiveness, the smallest act of compassion has that waves, that ripple effect that affects the whole universe.
Absolutely,
And so that's what
absolutely.
we need to turn on to. Now,
Yes,
you know, it's amazing to talk to you and get this more in depth analysis of not just about the phenomena, but the whole lessons and the structure. But let's go back a little bit to the materialization and the phenomena. Now, surely that being a historical part, that's a historical significance. That's going to make a lot of people recognize that we are interconnected with the spirit world. Where does the FEG group go from there? What is the plans now? Has John King got plans? Has the team got plans to make this bigger?
a very good question. And I need to tell you that in the last years, Julia and I many times came out of the seances and asked ourselves, where can that be brought from here? Is this must be the end now? What else do they want to bring forward to still grab the fascination of the people, to bring them in and to make them listen to the message? Yes, I mean they legitimize them as well with their phenomena. They say we want to prove that we are not a figment of the subconsciousness of the medium,
Mm.
that when you listen to us, you need to be aware that you listen to somebody who is really an intelligence beyond the human being here, and that we are communicating from a place to you, um, uh, from which we look at things from a different standpoint than you, and appreciate that we offer you this view from a different standpoint. So, what else can happen? Well, because from the beginning on, this mediumship was developing. Yes, it was regularly developing, and I can tell you that specifically in the last months, the most amazing new phenomena have happened. We have written about in the article,
Yeah.
but there's not all mentioned. Um, I was told instances from the last seances I had never heard before, what they were doing with the materialized stones of different color. And um, I don't know if you need it, if you use it later in the interview, but I tell it to you shortly. They have taken these different stones, and the people bring it with them, that they become energized. And when they are energized, usually they lie in front of the communicator, and then huge light explosions happen around them. I don't know how else I shall describe it. That
Wow.
is what people tell me. So, and now for the first time last time, um, he took these colored stones in his hands And then in his hands, these stones seemed like exploding in his hands, but not in, in a white light, but in the light of the color of the stone. And the whole room and the whole sitters must have been
Wow.
drowned in waves of color that were coming from these colorful explosions out of the stones. It must have been absolutely amazing. Or um, production of huge lumps of ectoplasm from the eyes. I mean, I just have had read in the afternoon, a lady was describing how she saw how in my eyes these gemstones were, or these glass artifacts were developing, becoming bigger and bigger, and then falling out of the eye. I mean, the spirits deliver it at the eye because here's the realm between the soul, the land of the soul, so to speak, and the land of the physical. That's the reason why they produce it at the eye. Um,
What advice would you
so,
give to somebody? I mean, there's great ramifications for what the group is doing. There's a fantastic message. How can other people get involved? How can they change their life for the better through the knowledge and the wisdom that's been gained through not only the materializations but the messages?
yeah,
And I'm sure people are going to ask, where are the record? I mean, we need recordings of all these messages that people can learn and send out to the world.
yes. Um, yeah, that's true. People like to have that, and we have, and I tell you right away the answer from the spirit world. They say, when we explain these things to you, then we implement information deep within you, in your subconsciousness.
Like sowing
And
seed.
2 or 3 days later, people phone us and say, Julia, I'm, I remember that I was so fascinated by what Hans was saying, but I cannot really figure it out anymore, what he was saying concretely. And the answer is, when we give you the recording, then we lose the magic of the seance room, and the recording is profane, and you
Right.
will and you will destroy what was implemented subconsciously in you with your try to make something out of it consciously.
I
So
understand
leave
that,
it.
but how do you Kai Mugi cannot reach the millions that it needs to reach in the world, and
Oh yes,
there's very few, if any,
yeah. I
real
mean,
physical groups that are developing to the level that you are. How do you reach the people?
Yeah, I mean, I am talking about the message, of course, and I am writing about the message, of course, and people can come in the seances, of course. Yes, I mean that's why I am doing it, not to talk about, but to give people the experience. And do you know what? People sometimes we have people who ask, yes, but what is my benefit from coming into your seance? What is my outcome? And the answer is, can you maybe imagine that something is happening that is for a bigger group, not for you, but implications for the whole world, and that you are not benefiting, but that what you are getting from the sounds is a signal to do something yourself, not being given something. You are giving and consuming your whole day. Ask yourself what happened in the songs that makes you do something different than you did before.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
and there are a lot of implications in the songs. The people can first the message, of course, that we have to create these that we live in the informational age. We have a chance at the moment to connect worldwidely and to organize ourselves in a way we had never before. This is the first thing in regards to uh, to intensify the informational field, to finally switch over into the what we call paradigm shifts that will enable us human beings to live on this earth, to live on this planet without destroying it. So take part in the network, became a hub in the network yourself. And the other thing is, start to experiment, and the magical worldview will become part of your own world. So there is so much to get out of these seances. Um, it is undescribable, actually. Yes, maybe the one or the other has to come behind the implication, but when you get it, then you know, oh wow, I am part of an endeavor that has actually cosmological proportions, as the spirit control says. We need you for an endeavor of cosmological proportions.
No,
You
it's interesting.
indeed,
And one of the things that's interesting, I mean, before we finish off, I mean, the message is huge, it's getting out there. And I know there'll be one people, I mean, I know that you've had loved ones coming through, but there's going to be people that would think that are of the opinion this mediumship is also about understanding the continuation of life after death, bringing loved ones through to give messages. But it seems to me that your work is on another level, it's on another plane, because though you have had that, and I know we've witnessed that, that's not the main focus. So there's obviously room for different types of mediumship. Your main focus doesn't seem to be on this afterlife evidential aspect. It seems to be on a, if
it's
you
a
like, a
part,
bigger proportion, as you said, a
it's a part of
cosmological
it.
proportion.
It's a part of it.
But will
And
you get, this is my big thing, from the materializations, can we expect to see possible materializations like we had with Helen Duncan and loved ones coming through, or Alec Harris?
yeah, we had them.
Are we going to see
We
more of it? Are we going to see more of it?
yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
I do
And
as well. I
I mean,
really, really do as
one
well.
outlook is that the Spirit said, start to work with huge cabinets, and we will bring forward up to 3 materializations at the same time.
Well, so there you have it. Go and build yourself a huge cabinet. So now my cabinet is very small. We'll have to increase in size, and I suppose as we get bigger, we have to
So,
we have to
yes,
build on. You know what? There's so much to look forward to, Kai. I mean, you and I could speak for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and people will listen to this and they'll love it. And we're going to do this again. We'll keep doing it regularly. But I know you're very busy. I'm going to let you go. But what's the last message you will give to everyone? I mean, this has been a fascinating day, not only for me, but for probably everybody who's going to be listening. What's the last message from you, from the FEG group, from the spirit world, to people listening?
my message is there are no boundaries, and we are on our way to the stars together, right? So join us, and we will actually achieve what is talked about for hundreds of years. I cannot say when it will happen, but I know that it is a very special moment in time, and it has to do also with the abilities we humans have achieved on this earth. It is a time that is much different than all the times before, and it has to do with the abilities to interconnect and to organize and visit us in the seances and start this endeavor of cosmological proportions of us, and the benefit will one of planetary proportions, and many will benefit from this, not only you and me, but whole humanity. This is my my message.
That's an amazing message. And do you know, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for spending a long time with myself and Kai. We could go on for hours and hours, but Kai, as you know, is involved with ASSMPI, and we've got some plans to do things in the future, and we'll be bringing him over to our big conference that's going to be happening in 2018, which is a closed one. It's not open to everyone, but we will be continuing to develop. We'll be continuing to watch the FEG group. We'll be continuing to support the work that is going on, and we just urge everyone to listen to the message and not just look at the phenomena, but look at the message. Kai, as always, brother, and I'm grateful I haven't been coughing my guts up through this, but it's been awesome listening to you and listening, and I feel I've sat and listened to the spirit world. Really, it's been awesome, and I'm sure everybody's going to love this. They loved the last interview that we did, and now this one is double the size, double the length. We'll take a bit of editing, but this is an awesome one, and I think you and Julia deserve to go and have a few days off and relax and just recharge the batteries so that we can see more wonderful things happening in the future.
For sure.
God
Thank you
bless,
so
brother.
much. Thank you so much, my dear brother. All the best.
God bless.
God bless.